Hi guys, and welcome back to the part 2 of my HomeLab overview over here. This part 2 we are going to talk about the KVM, the second node here, which is more about Windows stuff. Okay, so let's start with Windows stuff. So I have a virtual firewall. If you saw the first one, this is just a PFSense firewall, really the same thing that I done in the other node. So I want to separate every single server here from my physical home lab network. So everything goes through this firewall and I can manage everything on this firewall. If you want to see more stuff about the firewall, I recommend you to see the part 1 of this video, which is where I covered a little bit more about the firewall itself. So as you can see here, I have a couple of machines that if you work on a Windows environment, you should recognize them. So basically I have a Windows 7 network which contains 4 Windows workstations running Windows 10 on the latest update and running 2 domain controllers. And I actually have another one, a backup server, which is basically just a workstation but I use for backups, running network shares. And I have a management server, that is another Windows workstation that I use to access the firewall right here. So I'm going to connect to that one. So if I go to my, I'm going to exit out of my HomeLab, and I'm going to connect the management server. It's the first time that I am connecting in today, so it might be a little bit slow. For security purposes, I want to isolate the network that has firewall access from the other networks. So that's why this management network is right here. So this computer is on this network, obviously, the .50 network. And the one network, this is basically the one link between this virtual firewall and my physical home lab network. Then I have a Windows network over there, and here is where I run my Windows Server stuff, Active Directory, and all that stuff. Then the Cube network, this one is where I run my Kubernetes cluster. Leah network is for learning network, I guess, and on the .30, and I use this network for basically I have a couple of Linux distros on this network, different distros, so I can study them more deeply. Each one is basically for learning. Then I have a hack network. This one I use for learning Pentesting, and it's on the .40, and the .50 is the management one. I'm not going to cover anything of the firewall rules. If you want to see more on that, just go to the first video. Okay, let's connect to my domain controller. I'm going to connect to the first one, and as I said, I have 2 domain controllers, and the first one is so the first domain controller is obviously read and write domain controller, is a master, but then the second one is just only a read-only domain controller, so you cannot do any changes from that one. I have to do it from the first one, but it's there for redundancy. So if this fails for some reason, people still can use the second one to log in and to do basic tasks. Okay. So if I go to server manager, there we go. We can see what I'm running here on this Windows server. I have some modules installed, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about those. We have the Active Directory certification services, and this is for certificates. If you have a public exposed domain, you really want to make sure that you install that and you have your certificate signed by a trusted authority. Then we have the Active Directory services also over there. So that's probably the major part of this Windows Server stuff. It's the most useful stuff that I can do with GPUs and all of that kind of stuff. Then I am running a DHCP server and a DNS server. And the cool thing about Windows Server is that they actually work together. So when the workstation gets an IP address from this DHCP server, the DNS server will automatically point that new DHCP to a custom to the host name of that machine. Then I have the file and storage services. I have a couple of network shares over there, quotas also, and file screens. I'm going to show you in a moment. So a little web server here from Microsoft. I don't really use anything. I just wanted to see how it looked, how it looks like. Windows Server Essentials experience. Over here we have this is a module that came with this ISO. This is a Essentials ISO, so it just came pre-installed by default. I just had to configure it. Then I have installed also Windows Server Update Services. This is really useful if you want synchronized updates throughout all of your workstations. And then the normal, local server stuff and all the servers. So the second read-only controller, the main controller, is also paired on here on all servers. So if I click on that, you can see that both of these servers have of course static IP addresses, and they are both online. But what I have enabled is this, which is really useful. So you could see like the the CPU usage and the memory usage. So the performance counters are actually up, and then you can monitor if the server is needing more CPU or if it needs more RAM. At the moment, as you can see, they are doing fine. Oh, both things for both servers. So if I go to LNXDC 1, you can see that this one is doing a lot of more stuff. So that's it. Now what I want to talk more about here is Active Directory. So let's go there. Let's go to tools, Active Directory users and computers over there. Let's go on the top over there. So I have my LNXBTnet. This is a short name for the Linux Byte network under my Linux Byte.org domain. So even though I own this domain, this is not publicly exposed, so this is internal only. And I have created some OUs to organize a little bit my Active Directory tree structure. I'm going to disable that warning. My network share is completely filled because of the WSUS updates, but let's just ignore it for now. So I have this location, of course, in Portugal. So I like to divide it. I like to organize in that way, and then to divide in which type of objects that I have. So let's go with computers, and as you can see, I have the 4 workstations tied up together over there with the backup workstation also being connected to this domain. If I go to groups, I have the sec group for security, I have the sysadmins group and the employees group, for example, and I have on the users folder I have divided in the users folder by the groups. You don't need to do this. If you add the group as a security, which I did, you can just add a GPO and you can select the group and apply to different groups. Now the reason that I did this is because on a real company you might have like thousands of employees, thousands of users, and if I would start a company from scratch, I would do it in this way because this is much more organized, and it's just it's just much better to see it like this than to see it in all one folder like the default users. If we go here, you can see a bunch of stuff there. They are kind of all mixed together over there. So if I go to the users back, you can see that I have the admin users, which at the moment obviously is just the admin. I have disabled the user folder, so every user that I disable for some reason will be on this folder just to be separated from the rest. Then you might recognize some names. Other names are just made up, but I have some users here that I added to the sec group over there, just for fun. And on employees, I have actually added 6 random users over there, just because I ran out of ideas of names. So yeah, so that's how my Active Directory looks like. I want to show you now the group policy, so you can see my OU structure over there, and that I have some rules applied to all of the users by default. So I'm disabling the background and disabling some the window effects. So because this is a virtual machine, I want to get the most performance out of it. You could set a disable background is just basically changing the background to a black wallpaper, basically. Okay. But then I have custom stuff for each group. For example, if I go to admins group, nothing there. If I go to the employees group, I want to disable the task manager. I don't want my employees to be able to, for example, go to the task manager. On my sec user, I don't want them to go to the task manager either. So you could organize your GPUs like this. I think it's much easier to organize like this than use the actual groups, because you have a lot. It just looks better on the tree here. You have much more organization going on. That's my opinion over there. So they are just basically little basic GPUs. Of course, I did this for testing. In a real environment, you would have much more GPUs, of course, depending what your company wants to. Let's go now to the DHCP server. So I'm gonna show you my DHCP scopes. So I'm running IPv6, but I don't have any scope on IPv6 because I'm only using IPv4 basically. This is the default scope, of course, on that 10 network. And if I go to addresses lists, this is what I was talking about DNS. So automatically, when you get an IP address from the DHCP, DNS will automatically link that to the DNS, which is pretty cool. So you can see here every workstation has an IP, including the backup workstation as well. We can see that we have this is all by default, okay? And then I have to set up almost anything. By default, we have the two DNS zones, so the forward zone and the reverse zone. Let's focus on the forward zone on my root domain, and you can see all of those hosts are actually linked here also. So now about the file share and all that. So if I go to, let's say, file and storage services, I could go to the Explorer also, but let's just go there. But if I go to shares, which is what I am interested in, so we are getting some default shares, which is a bunch of shares. But what is important here is everything that you see on the H and F drive is basically shares that I have created myself. So I have created a images folder. This is where the background is. So it has read-only permissions for all users. Of course, the admin can do whatever he wants to. Then I have profiles shared. So I'm actually using roaming profiles. So if a user logs in on the workstation number 1 and on the next day it logs in on the workstation number 25, in my case I just have 4, but so if it logs on the next day on the workstation 4, it will actually fetch all of the profile data, including the files and docs saved on its own home folder. I have a resources folder. That is something, and SMB services packages. This guy actually clogged up all of my drive. So I only had 4 gigs on this drive. I have 250 gigs, I guess, on my H drive. But I choose to put on this one. So, and that actually clogged up all of my drive because of the update that it was downloading. We go to the dashboard again. So that thing is totally clogged up, as you can see, but this one is not. So I created this one, and this is actually a spanned volume. So I did a mistake with this one, which is this is not a spanned volume. So I cannot actually expand this volume anymore. Now I did the same mistake again here. This one is a spanned volume, so if this clogs up, I could just easily add another hard drive and extend this volume a little bit more. And I'm going to switch the updates to this volume over here. The file resource manager, there we go. Because I want to show you that I also add some quotas and file screens to prevent some files from being executed, from being saved. I mean, on the network shares. So as you can see here, 10 gigabytes per user on the test drive and 5 gigabytes per user on the resources drive. The problem with the F drive is because it's clogged up with the update, so anyone can actually use it anymore. So I have to fix that. Going on the file screens over here, you can see that I have created one to block to save files of type MP4 and executable files also. So maybe I can show you one of my workstations running up. So let's just go back here and I could go to KVM2 already in there. And I want to put up one that is not connected. Okay, this one could be. So this user, okay, this is on my domain, obviously. Okay, that's Drake.com. I think that's the domain name that I put it. So I'm going to show you this user belongs to the security group. As you can see, they cannot access the task manager, obviously, because of that GPO. Also, the background is black. So let's just go to the control panel, I guess. There you go. So as you can see, the device name for device name. So it has the connected to the domain, and yep, that's it. So let's get with the Kubernetes. I'm not going to show you too many things here. It's just 6 machines running Ubuntu. Each one has 2 gigs of RAM and 2 CPUs. So totalizing 12 gigs of RAM with 12 CPUs. This cluster is obviously a virtual cluster. Everything is virtual, but I'm going to show you when I'm running K3s for the Kubernetes cluster. So if I connect, just checking the Kubernetes NAT here. So it's 4,000, yeah. That would be on port 4,000. Yeah, I didn't remember the port there. So there we go. If I run sudo, actually I'm going to do sudo bash already. I'm gonna do kubectl and get nodes, and you will see that all the nodes are ready and are running and ready to deploy some pods. Not running anything in the cluster yet, but I actually pretend to run the CSGO server and Minecraft server actually over this cluster because of redundancy. That would be a cool idea to do. I also want a plan to install Rancher, so I can manage this cluster through a web GUI, but again, not configured yet. I have to create a virtual machine to do that. And then it's just stuff for learning, really. So I have a machine running Arch, another machine running Ubuntu. I can open up some of these. Another running CentOS, which I'm learning. Oh. So, different Linux distros using different package managers. I need to know. And then just for the hacking, I'm using obviously Kali Linux because it has most of the tools, network security and Pentesting. So that's it, guys. The second node was a little bit faster because it has less stuff to explain here. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoy and have a nice day. Wait for the next video. Will be out soon. So yep, stay tuned and bye bye.